All right, everybody. Judge. There we go. No, I have to do that. That's fun. All right, I'm going to... let's see. I'm going to talk to you today about the JAR, Judging at Regular document. Show of hands. Who thinks that competitive is the most visible and the most important rules enforcement level that we work at? You think competitive is more important? You're right. You're right. It is where we focus most of our attention most of the time. However, by overwhelming majority, most Magic players will never walk into a competitive level event. Approximately 90% of Magic players will only ever play at regular REL. Also, about 85% of statistics are made up on the spot. Might not be 90%, but it is an overwhelming majority. Tens of times more players will play at FNMs and pre-releases and that kind of event, and will never play in a PPTQ. Will never play in a Star City Open. Will never even think about going to a Grand Prix, but they will be there every Friday night playing Draft or Modern or whatever format that your store plays. Magic is a hard game. It's like, actually the first sentence in the second paragraph of the JAR is Magic is complicated. The rules documents is, what is it, 200-300 pages long? 222. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Part of our job at Regular is to educate and inform players. Does anybody know what the JAR is? I think I may have already given this one away. That's right. It's the Judging at Regular document. It is the 2-page document that is, it is 2 pages long, so that judges and tournament organizers and maybe players, but mostly judges and TOs, can easily read it, easily know it, and easily use it. It is written to be easy to use. All right, Magic is a complicated game.
Wait a minute, that was only rated number 2.
All right, fair enough. However, but I will say that any card that has an alternate art of a flow chart, so that you can figure out what it does. So this just kind of illustrates the point. Magic is a complicated game. And it leads me into my next point. Whenever you are playing at FNM or helping out at pre-release or whatever the case may be, whenever you are at a regular REL event, something wrong is happening. There we go. What is our role? Should we go in like Judge Dredd? Everyone, this is the rules, and you will follow them or you will die. I am the law. Right, I am the law. Or are we teachers? Are we educators? Which... Exactly. This is FNM. This is not day 2 at a Grand Prix. This is FNM. We don't want to go in saying, this is the law, you did it wrong, you get a game law. No, that's not what we want. We want to go up to the players and be able to explain to them what should have happened in the game, the way the rules should work. FNM is not a competitive format. It is not a place to It's not a place for the IPG, honestly. Um, while some of your fixes you might be able to, depending on your store, draw from the philosophy of the IPG, it is not a place for the IPG. You're not going to give game losses. In the entire jar, there is no way to get a game loss. No. Cheating is a DQ. If you are more than 10 minutes late, you forfeit your games. The only way to get a game loss is, go ahead, Katie.
It's after repeated offenses, you can warn them. That's the last one.
Right. Okay. So we're going to quickly. All right. Here's the first section of the jar. Your common issues, your missed triggers. A player sees a card that they shouldn't have, drawing too many cards. Has anyone been at a tournament where new player shows up? Maybe it's a modern FNM, maybe it's standard. They sit down and they start shuffling up their dual deck. It happens. And other small errors. Okay, so this is the fixes at regular REL are meant to be as organic as possible. If you're called over to a table and a player has had a missed trigger, they forgot their. Wow, I'm drawing a. Yeah, they forget their Avacyn flip. You come over. You come to the table and you ask, you find out that it's a missed trigger. What is the fix at regular? Anybody?
You can back it up. Explain what happened.
It is almost never a backup. Okay, so this is we're kind of venturing off into the IPG. All right, so really what it's going to be is you're going to look at the situation and you're going to decide whether or not going ahead and resolving the trigger or backing it up, what is going to be the least disruptive to the game state, or maybe even just leaving it alone, not doing anything. The fixes at regular are not written in stone. Remember, it's a 2-page document. The section in the IPG on missed triggers is 2 pages long. It is regular REL is a place where you want to walk away and your players are happy. If your local store where you're you can't always make your players happy, but that's what you want to strive to. If your local store is a cutthroat environment and they are willing to stab their roommate in the back with a knife in order to get that extra pack, well, you can roll closer to competitive for that FNM. If your FNM is a place where everyone comes in and jokes and has a good time and it's a very relaxed, very casual event, and someone forgot their Avacyn trigger, and you come over and you say, oh, I forgot my Avacyn trigger. Here's where we are. If you're comfortable with just giving them the Avacyn trigger and that's going to make the opponents happy because that's the way the game should have been, then do it. Go ahead, Katie.
That being said, to be clear, never at regular should you be giving out penalties except for DQ.
Correct. The regular is not the place for any kind of penalties. You can use some of the fixes from the IPG if you're in a very competitive feeling environment.
No takes it back, it's kind of stuff.
Right. You should never use the penalties from the IPG though. What about seeing cards you shouldn't have? How should that be handled? Exactly right. Excuse me. Right. If you find out have they cascaded 15 times this game, well, maybe you leave some cards on the bottom. And okay, and that leads me to another good point. You come over. All right. So have you done? Do you know any of the cards at the bottom of your deck? How many cards have you put on the bottom of your deck today? You've cascaded. I see 3 cascade cards in your graveyard.
5.
You're definitely 5. Maybe 6. You can leave extra cards on the bottom of the graveyard. I mean of the library, right? It doesn't have to be. In a very laid back, casual environment, your players aren't necessarily going to remember players aren't necessarily going to remember I flipped definitely 23 cards this game. I definitely flipped 6 cards this game. It is okay to leave more rather than not enough, because you're leaving random on top of after you shuffle the unknown portion, you leave random on top. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. This is a good one. Drawing too many cards. You come up to the table. Player says, "Okay, I should have 5 cards in my hand. I have 6. I don't know how it got there." Or I accidentally drew too many cards. Or it doesn't matter how it got there. You come up to the table and there's too many cards in the player's hand, and they didn't cheat. That's them. They didn't cheat. They just have too many cards in their hand. How would you fix it? Take a card at random. We do not shuffle it back in. We put it on top. Because it might not be, the card that you take at random might not be the card that was extra. You might accidentally take the card that they base their entire next 3 turns on, and we don't want to disrupt the game that much. But putting it on top of the library, the game is basically where it should be now. Not enough cards in the wrong deck. You fix the deck as best you can. Does not have to be, all right, we're gonna take out the 4 Stoneforge Mystics and we're gonna give you 4 planes. It doesn't have to be 1-for-1 with basic lands. You put the deck in a playable state that makes the player happy. That makes sense? We're not trying to penalize someone. We're not. You're making lots of faces and you're throwing me off. Do you disagree? Okay. But you have the like in the dual deck example, maybe they have a first time player and they had a bunch of cards from booster packs, and they built their first standard deck ever, and you go through it and you realize that those 3 cards just aren't playable. They're not legal in standard. Or maybe they're playing the cat. They didn't know that the cat was banned. That's a great example. They built their deck out of their fat pack. They come to FNM for the first time ever, and they're playing the cat. Now, you don't have to give them a planes. Let them put whatever they want that's legal in there to make them happy. Let them keep playing. You don't want to destroy their deck and make them sad and make them not come back. You want them to come back. Go ahead. Correct. At regular, specifically for the reason of you wanting them to come back. You want to educate them, explain to them why it's wrong, tell them where they can find the banned and restricted list, tell them where they can find these sets are legal in modern, these sets are legal in standard, tell them where they can find all of the information, and but don't You don't have to put the plains in place of the Felidar Guardian. You can, if they want to run any other 1/4, they can. You had something, Katie?
So on that note, there is a lot of suggestions in the jar, but with the recent change 6 months or a year ago or something, you just have a lot more flexibility. So he's saying we can be more generous in this case if you want them to enjoy. Don't take too much time. Don't say, okay, go ahead and take 20 minutes to go get this card or whatever. But.
Right. I think that's if you take one thing away from my talk today, the biggest thing I want you to take away is at regular, our job is to educate the player, let them know what they did wrong and where to find the way to do it right, and customer service, right? As long as you and the TO both agree with what you want to do, then if they're playing a dual deck at standard, and like the only way to make it legal is to leave the basic lands, maybe talk to the TO and invite them back to the draft the next night, or. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. It lets them sit down and play Magic with other people, play Standard that night. The Planeswalker decks are 100% Standard legal. That is a terrific option. Go ahead. You take the. Are they 60 now, or are they? You just shuffle 230s. That's right. Yeah, you can do that as well. Just. Exactly. And that's the important thing, is making sure that the player is happy. Exactly. And then small errors. Again, whenever you come up to the table, you see what's gone wrong, and you do your best to put that game state somewhere that's mostly legal. Explain to both players what happened, what rule they broke, how they broke it, but you don't want to penalize them at regular. You want to educate them, but our job really at regular is to keep it fair and to keep it fun. One big thing is, if you come up to a table and there are obvious things that are just wrong, you can apply state-based actions. You have a green enchantment on a creature or protection from green. That can't be there. You can go ahead and finish resolve state-based actions. Make sure whenever you walk away from the table that the game state is legal. Go ahead, Katie.
So on that note, if something happened illegally in the past, but it's currently legal, then if it's too far in the past, we just kind of leave it as is.
Right. If I have I was thinking if I have a pacify on a creature with Shroud, it is legal for that pacify to be enchanting the creature with Shroud. You don't have to put it in the graveyard if it's been there for 4 turns. You can just leave it. There are ways for creatures with Shroud or Hexproof to be enchanted. That enchantment being on that creature is legal. You would leave it. But if a green enchantment is on a creature with pro-green, that's not legal. You would have to pull it off.
When replacing a card in the deck, if they put something in that gives them clear advantage over their current opponent, would you continue to allow that?
Okay, so here's the thing, though. If someone comes into a standard tournament with 4 copies of Stoneforge Mystic in their deck. Are you really worried about them gaining advantage over their opponent?
Well, I was thinking more
Oh, okay. Well, it's the same thing. Okay, in that case, Stoneforge Mystic may be a bad example, but they come in with a dual deck, or they come in and they think that the old Teferi is like it. That's basically it. If you're in a position to where you're having to make a deck legal at FNM, you probably don't really need to worry about them gaining an advantage over the opponent. And yeah, we have a lot of leeway at regular, but for the most part, it's not really something you got to worry about. Like, yes, there is an opportunity for advantage there. They're playing against artifacts, and they put 4 Stony Silence in their deck. Sure, maybe worry about that, but that's their deck now. And when they play Burn, that Stony Silence isn't so good. Let's see. We're going to go ahead and move on to Gubs. General unwanted behaviors. Whereas the previous section, the problems that come up often were all rule-based, these are more people-based. Taking too much time to sideboard or play. If someone is obviously slow playing, or taking too much time, just in general, we want to say something. It's not competitive REL, but it's still... Okay, show of hands. Who has played against the person that goes 2-time and all 5 turns every round, every Friday night? Who wishes that someone would say something to that person? Why haven't you? Fair enough. As judges at FNM, it is our responsibility to make sure that everyone is having a good time. Yes, you want to make sure that the person that can't process things as quickly and is having a time, going into the tank and playing slowly, you want to make sure that they have a good time too. But show of hands, we all know what it feels like to play against that person every Friday night. You say that, Jim, but mine, I play Affinity in Modern. Whenever I go to time, oh. Yeah. Do you have something, Andrew?
Yeah, I would say just because you're not wearing your judge shirt, or just because you're not officially judging the tournament, doesn't mean you magically stop becoming a judge. Feel free to say something. Like, if you notice a player being exceptionally slow every single time, don't be afraid to say, like, hey man, you should probably focus on speeding up just a little bit because you're kind of dragging the tournament behind.
Right, so I agree and disagree. Yes, you should, in a nice and polite manner, you're more than welcome to express your concern. If you're not a judge of the tournament, I wouldn't press the issue very much. If you're not working that night for the TO, I would be careful about operating in a judge capacity in any given scenario. Go ahead.
I have a question about the asking or providing strategy, because I know that when I first went to my game shop and I was playing a Friday night draft for the very first time, I was very confused. And as I played my first few games, I was so grateful for people who were helping me as I was playing and as I was building decks, because I had no idea how to successfully build a 40-card deck that would work.
Okay.
I didn't know how many lands and stuff like that. So when is it not okay for helping new players as they're playing, and when it's unwanted?
Okay, so on that, I got 2 hands. On that, give me 1 second, Jim. During the actual draft and during the actual playing of the game, we want to discourage people making plays for the person that's playing. But whenever, like building decks in limited, at regular REL, you can have the entire shop surrounding you in a huddle circle, helping you build the best deck that you can possibly build. Because at regular REL, we have continuous construction for limited events, which means that at any given point during the night, the configuration of your deck can change. Get all the help that you need as a new player in building your deck.
I know like a lot of conflicting stuff in the game. Like some people were like, "Oh yeah, everyone can help you," and then other people were like, "No, you can't do that. You're gonna get disqualified."
So, and actually, don't walk up in the middle of a game and, all right, you need to tap the island and you need to counter that spell, because that don't do that. But hey, you're playing an aggro deck, so you're going to want to make sure that you have 16 mountains and as many 1 and 2 cost red creatures as you. That is 100% encouraged. Go ahead, Kitty.
Also, whether competitive or regular, in between matches, it's totally fine to talk about general strategy and whatnot.
Yes.
As long as it's not during a match or during a draft.
Correct. Go ahead, David.
If they're in the process of playing, leave them alone, don't ask for help, but any other time, whatever conversation you're going to have is fine.
Absolutely. Jim?
I will tell you, there's one person that can help you play during a game. Your opponent.
Yes.
This is true.
And there are times in my opinion when I'm playing a less experienced player, I will sit down and say, that is not your optimal play, knowing what you have or what you're getting ready to target. I will give you suggestions. Have you had a difference? Things like that to be a more optimal mate. But that doesn't mean you have to do it.
Right.
I'm definitely not doing it to gain an advantage. I'm trying to make you aware of your more optimal play.
Absolutely. Sitting.
Especially at F&M, we don't care as much about the points as the grinding points and the other things there.
Right. There's.
I'm playing when I'm needed to be even, and I don't care if I like to win. I don't care if I lose if I got to play. If
Yep.
my deck decided to poo all over me, and I didn't get to play, I will get salty, and when you say good game, I'm liable to put the game on. Because it wasn't a good game from my point, because I wasn't able to do anything because of my deck. Not because of you, because of my deck.
Whenever.
When I did something to make the karma fairy mad at me, I probably deserve it, and I will try to be nicer, but I'm not always there.
Whenever Jeskai Control was still real big in Modern. Again, I play Affinity. That's been my deck for years. Affinity doesn't do very well against control decks, especially Jeskai Control. They just burn that, counter that, don't want that. And I'm sitting there and, yeah, we're at the end of game 2 and I haven't gotten to play Magic tonight. I would actually have to apologize to my opponent for my salt and walk away from the table as soon as the match was done so that I could calm down and catch my tongue. I hated Control so badly. That deck is the bane of my existence.
He was head judging. I was playing, and I banged the tabletop, got off the land before I said something to the player, so he wouldn't have to disqualify me.
So,
Wouldn't remember the event.
on that note, well, no, I can't progress yet. Tardiness. All right. Tardiness. 10 minutes into the match, if a player has not shown up, they are considered to have forfeited the match and are dropped from the tournament. If they later come back into the shop and are like, "Oh, I meant to be back. I got caught in line at Taco Bell because the lines at Taco Bell move so slowly for unknown reasons." At the TO's discretion, they can put them back into the tournament, but they have lost that match. There is a little bit of wiggle room. There's a paragraph or a sentence in the opening of the jar that gives the TOs all sorts of reach, where technically game losses and time and things like that are not. Let me restart. The jar says 10 minutes forfeit. If you as a TO, Jim, feel like 5 minutes in, or 8 minutes in, 9 minutes in, they need to be reminded that they shouldn't have been 9 minutes late to the match. You have some leniency in what you can do there. Letter of the jar is 10 minutes, they forfeited 2 games. There is no game lost at 3 minutes.
I always tell my mates, do what the jar says, not what Jim does when it comes time to party. I think it was 3 and 10 for my opinion to keep it turning over.
And 3 and 10 is perfectly fine in the letter of the jar, because of the paragraph at the beginning of the jar that says if some of this doesn't quite fit your story, feel free to change it within the MTR to fit.
But that's a hard one for me to remember when I'm writing working side events as a GP or something, because then it's 10 minutes. Up until 10 minutes, it's nothing.
Right. There's if you're working side events at a GP, if you ever get the opportunity, all side events at a GP are run at regular REL, and there are no deviations. The 3 and 10 that Jim does at his shop is a deviation that needs to be addressed beforehand. But at GPs, there are no deviations to the jar. Go ahead, Katie.
I had a general question on your opinion, something that I've had issues with in the past. General unwanted behavior, specifically, like you see major and minor stuff that would be in the IPG. How do you deal with that stuff at regular? You don't really have an easy just to give you a penalty. You know?
Talk to them. Depending on what it is, most Magic players don't mean to actually make other people uncomfortable or upset, or they don't mean to do it. Pull them away and talk to them. Tell them, look, that language is not acceptable. Tell them that, and they'll usually apologize, and or maybe they won't. Maybe they'll tell you something. Maybe they'll call you a name because you're telling them to be. But if they get there, then there's other avenues. But for the most part, if they're doing something you don't think that they should be doing, or behaving in a way that is unbefitting a family environment. Remember, WotC wants F&M to be a wholesome family environment. They want the yes. They want me to be able to bring my 14-year-old daughter to F&M and her be comfortable. They want exactly. They want me to be able to bring my 8-year-old stepson in and him to be okay. I lost my train of thought on that one. But basically talk to them. Pull them to the side. Tell them what they're doing wrong, how not to do it, and if they can tell them that if they continue to do it, that there's going to be further issues. Does that make sense? Go ahead.
What about the attitude that when there are kids in the store, you call people out of language, but if there's no kids in the store, anything goes?
Okay. By the letter of the law, by the letter of WotC, certain things are never okay. Off-color humor is never okay at a Magic tournament. That being said, there's a way to say this. If your gaming group is partaking in some bad off-color humor or bashing a certain sex or SEC-TS sex, or doing things that are just not okay as people, it is our duty to make them better people. Like that's part of being a Magic judge. It should never be okay for us to sit down and do some of that stuff. Also, well, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
It just says aggressive, violent, harassing, or abusive behavior, and that is number 1 under serious problem. And it uses the word disqualification.
Yes. If it gets bad, then you tell them to leave. If it's just you and your friends in the store, and there's nobody around to offend, and no one is being offended, maybe it's not. I don't know. It's a gray area. Yeah.
Also a per judge question.
Exactly. Exactly.
I judge solely in like a college town, and my F&M is comprised of like mostly like 8 to 10 college dudes, and it gets rowdy, but they understand that whenever like people are in the store, it's a no-go.
Right.
That should be fine, right?
I'd rather not speak to morals.
Yeah.
It gets really hard,
Yeah, as
but
a PO, they are like my whole clientele. Like I can't remove my entire clientele from the store.
you are not wrong.
If you're the store owner, yes, you can.
Yeah, but it's bad for business.
It's an ongoing philosophical discussion.
Exactly.
And it will stay ongoing.
Exactly. Go ahead, Daryl, and then we're going to move on.
This kind of question and thing is something that needs to be addressed by the TO and the owner as far as what environment they want with their store, as far as who's around, who's to offend, where we draw the line. And you need to have that conversation with your TO. If it's not okay with them, then that's what we need to enforce. If they allow it, then that's what they need to do. It's their section and it's on the line. So they need to be able to draw the line.
Yes. Also, that being said, if the line that they draw allows people to be in their store playing Magic and feeling uncomfortable because of any reason, that's not okay.
They're free to find a new place to play. I'd be happy to welcome in my store.
Depending on the reason, you're completely right. But also depending on the reason, it might need to be a conversation had with the TO.
There is a WTN code of conduct that these guys need to be applying and dealing with. Recently, I got thrown under the bus by one of my peers.
Still influence the current game.
Right.
So
like
how would
trying
you
to
address this
actually-
problem at regular REL? Like, I'm playing Modern, and I go ahead and resolve my Bob trigger, and I put the card in my hand, and my opponent goes, whoa, wait, I didn't see that. What was it?
Okay. That's going to go back to the common issues, and then that's going to be either miss trigger or drawing extra card. So we're going to decide which one it is. For Bob trigger, again, you're going to come up to the table and you're going to have to make a judgment call. Did you miss the Bob trigger? Does everyone know Bob, our confidant?
I'm
Okay.
saying I've already resolved the trigger. My opponent just didn't see the card that I revealed. Like, I revealed the card. My opponent wasn't paying attention. I went ahead and put it in my.
You have to re-reveal it, or
Like, I think this is the question that's being asked.
That's
I think it's a specific issue.
that's going to be a very specific. It's going to have I'm going to have to talk to both players. I'm going to have to figure out both players' story, and I'm going to have to decide what happened, and then I'm going to make a call on how to fix it based on that information. Regular REL, as long as at regular REL, if you want to just show the card and everyone's happy, then I'm probably okay with that. If it's a more competitive environment, then obviously the range of fixes at regular REL is here rather than laser focused the way it is in the IPG. Do you have something, Jim?
Most times, the advantage gained to win the pack is really worth the risk of getting defeated for cheating, rather than that, just to someone with this team for one extra pack or one extra position.
Yep.
Most FNMs, most areas,
Yeah, and that's
exclusively there, but most are. And the difference in there is really worth it. The only thing there.
right, and that's the reason that we have as much breadth that we do at regular REL. The incentive to do bad things for a pack or $5, $10 in the store credit or whatever it may be, just it's not a lot of incentive to cheat, to upset your friends that you play with every Friday night. Right. It's the risk versus reward to cheating at a regular REL event shouldn't be there. If it is there, maybe it shouldn't be run at regular REL. If you're playing for a $6,000 prize and we're going to run it at regular REL, and maybe not. It doesn't even have to be a huge money prize. Maybe it's a From the Vault Angels. Go ahead.
For example, like I went to a tournament that did a full set of all the expedition lands. The first set was in a card, and my opponent missed his bobble trigger and drew a card anyways. And I told him, "No, you missed it." And I was very clear about it. I said, "Upkeep." Yeah, I said, "Draw step. Just go ahead." And I drew my card, and he totally missed it. And then he went, "Oh, I forgot it." I called Judge Everett. Judge says, "Well, it's regular REL," and that's where I placed the situation on the.
Maybe a tournament for all of the expedition lands shouldn't be run at regular. If you think that if you walk into a tournament, or you're thinking about having a tournament and you're thinking maybe deck list would be good for my tournament at regular, maybe it shouldn't be run at regular. Very quickly, let's get through this before I run out of time. Rolling a dice is never okay. As Mike said, playing a game of Axis and Allies to determine the winner is probably not okay for a million reasons, but it's not okay. And theft. Again, theft is one of those, definitely don't do it, and if you catch someone doing it, maybe you should call the cops. And if you're going to call the cops on anybody for anything they're doing in a tournament, it's probably worth disqualifying them. Go ahead, Katie.
Also, what's important to note is anything, the bribery and wagering, all that stuff, even offering is DQable.
Yes. Go ahead, Jessica.
Something on the determining match outcomes by incentive scores and etc. A lot of times people ask, okay, but they're a brand new player, they didn't know, they were brand new in my event. I feel like if you're in that position, you didn't do your job as a judge. You should have made an announcement at the beginning and before that round, telling them. And I think a lot of people get to that, well, what should I do? You should do your job before you ever do it.
The first time that you have to disqualify a player, a couple of players because they didn't know better than to roll dice, you're gonna remember to remind them not to roll dice. Katie, then Andrew.
The serious problems, the serious problems is actually the one part of competitive and regular where we actively want to help players. We can totally say, hey, don't do that. We can't do that for missed triggers, for anything else, but for serious problems, we want to make sure that they don't commit these if we can stop it.
Go ahead, Andrew.
It also says in the jar that ignorance is not an excuse to
Correct.
solidify that.
So in the definition of cheating, it says intentionally and knowingly. This one, rolling a dice, does not require it to be intentional or knowingly. You don't have to know that the rule exists in order to be disqualified for breaking that rule. It goes back to gambling laws and all that kind of stuff. If we allow even the most ignorant player, and ignorant in the didn't know sense, to do this, then we are allowing gambling. And if Magic falls into the realm of gambling, we can't hold FNMs in the state of Texas or most states in the union. Go ahead, David.
That's a good point. Obviously, the gambling laws are a big factor in this. But one other thing I'd like to add on, just so you think about it as you pitch it to other people. We do have parents bring in their children and leave them to play Magic. What kind of an impression does that leave if the parent leaves and comes back and sees you roll a die to determine who gets the pack? Oh, I'm dropping my child off for what? It just leaves a bad impression. So there are
Very good point.
unfortunately, there is no tolerance, but as noted earlier, if you can catch them before they say that, if you see them starting to shoot the die, stop them there, like don't let them get.
Yep. Go ahead. the split was 100% not tied to the outcome of that game. It was not dependent on a role, anything. It was completely and entirely dependent from any asking you to concede or anything like that. That is 100% okay. All right, I'm getting the lasso. I'm about to be drug off stage. Thank y'all. If anyone has any questions, feel free to come and talk to me at any point today. Go ahead. Oh, I am Jonathan Reasoner. I guess I did forget to introduce myself. I am Jonathan Reasoner. My feedback goes on the hot pink slips. And again, if anybody would like to talk to me about the jar or anything else, I will be here all day. And I'm. But I don't want. I want to keep talking to the people on the internet.